so appreciate all of y'all being here today. If you would, if I have not, so some of today is about people who have been on my podcast, people who I would like to help on my podcast, and then there's some of you maybe just listen. But if you have not been on my podcast, I would love to be able to have the opportunity to sit down with you for a Go Win conversation. If you don't know what Go Win means, Go Win is about being consistent in the right things to achieve the wins you want for your story, so you can live out your greatest life. And so I like to sit down with people and try to help talk through some of the right things that they're consistent in to achieve those wins, so that other people can learn from them, be inspired by, and connect. And so one of the things I want to do beyond my podcast is be intentional about putting people together in a room and connect on a greater level. For example, real quick, the reason this is important, I don't know how many of y'all know Hannah Schmidt, but Hannah was on my podcast. But one time, Hannah, I invited a few people together, and this is before they launched Creative Mornings. Any of y'all ever heard of Creative Mornings in Oklahoma City? Mel is actually the host, one of the co-hosts of Creative Mornings. But I invite Hannah to be a part of this thing called Go Win Circles. I asked Hannah, how do you need help? Several people in the circle, she says how she needs help. In the circle was several people that were instrumental in helping launch Creative Mornings. Just from her sharing her story, and in that, people come together and helping one another. And now Creative Mornings is going on its second year, third year. She's launched a co-working space, but it's just about connecting with one another and being intentional about saying, asking the question, how can I help? What is your story? Where are you trying to go? And so today, I want to sit down with my great friend, Phil Nichols, who owns Exxon. One of the things that I love about Phil is they have this goal to help 1,000 companies, add value to 1,000 companies. He can tell you a little bit more in order for over the next 10 years. To have a heart to say, hey, I just want to help 1,000 people, 1,000 companies go further better in their story is amazing to me. And so, Phil, thank you for being here with me this evening. And if you would, just go ahead and share a little bit of your story and who you are.
Again, my name is Phil Nichols. Most people know me as Chris's sidekick around the country. I carry Chris's bags wherever he goes. But now Chris, one of my best friends, is like a little brother to me. Those of you that know us well know that that's the case. But I've been married, most importantly, I've been married 32 years to a beautiful woman named Phil Nichols, who's an educator, special education educator, which I think is the greatest calling in the world, to be a teacher. And I think we got teachers here. And I think that, you know, for me, our biggest blessing has been the children that have been in our lives. We were blessed with two beautiful boys by birth, and then as Jeff and several people in the room know, we've adopted, fostered, and raised several other children. Tanya actually got asked that question. She did the math, and we've had 37 kids live with us for longer than 6 months. So, unfortunately, we're empty nesters right now. So, if you know anybody that's wanting to get rid of a kid, let me know. But that's really. but that's.
No one in this room wants to get rid of kids.
That's really our calling. That's always been our calling, is to be available for young people. But professionally, I own a few small businesses. Exxon is really our flagship company, in that it's the one that I'm most passionate about, which, as Hetty alluded to, our mission is to help 1,000 businesses in 10 years increase the value of their organization. You can do that in a lot of ways. Now, one company, it's very tough, one small company, to touch 1,000 businesses in 10 years. So we've launched a lot of different programs within Exxon. For example, our Bold Advisory Groups, which are peer advisory groups with a spin on it. You know, they're made up of typically 10 C-suite or leaders of organizations that meet once a month, share ideas, help each other through challenges. And then what really comes out of those groups are great friendships are developed. And they become much more than just somebody that you go to and you share ideas with or you get help with. But we've always said, who do CEOs of companies talk to? And the answer is no one. You know, because they're the ones who are supposed to have all the ideas, all the solutions, when there's a problem, you know, they can fix it. And the reality is, anybody that's ever made a payroll in their life, that's the scariest thing in the world when you got other families dependent on you to come through. I mean, it's scary. Dave Evans, who is co-founder with me and my business partner, Dave's a retired colonel from the United States Air Force. He's the polar opposite of me. Those of you know Dave well. He's very numbers focused, process focused. I'm very much not.
No.
I like to tell people, if you're waiting for me to do a spreadsheet, you're going to be waiting a while. But we balance each other well, and it's been a great partnership. And we're passionate about helping small to mid-sized business owners get better, and it's Dave and I both being veterans. When we were introduced by a mutual friend. Dave had his own company, I had my own company. Dave, we brought our companies together, Fort Dexon, about 4 years ago, I guess. And Dave said, we were talking one day, and I said, we're both a couple of broken down military veterans, but we're patriots. And we feel like the goal of helping and the mission of helping 1,000 businesses increase their value in 10 years is a way for us to continue to be patriots and continue to serve our country. Because we truly believe if we help small business owners get better, they're going to have more jobs, they're going to hire more people, they're going to put more money into the economy, they're going to get more opportunity. That's a way for us to continue to serve our country. And so we take that very, very seriously. And it's to brag on one of our clients. It's a company out of Enid, Oklahoma called Base Connect. I'd recommend you guys Google them. They're a really neat technology company. Founded by another military veteran that is doing incredible things. We've got companies in that sector, we've companies in the energy sector, in distribution, service, all different industry types. Because at the end of the day, running that company is running that company. And I think a lot of people that, many of you in here, I'm sure, run businesses, organizations. It doesn't really matter what it is. It matters about, do you understand people? Do you understand process? Do you understand leadership? The business itself, from an executive standpoint, really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Can you tell us, what are some things that you have seen over your time working with small businesses? What are some right things that y'all have been teaching them to be consistent in to achieve the wins they want as business people?
Yeah, total, I've been doing this for about 26 years. And the number one thing is the people in the organization. You got to create a culture that allows people to live in their wheelhouse, where their strengths are. You can't force people to be good at something, even if they have the ability to do it well. If they're not passionate about it, if they don't like it, they're not going to do it. They're just not with excellence. They might muddle the way through it, but you got to create a culture where people feel empowered to really do the things that they're passionate about. I'd say the other thing is consistency. I think you get way too high and way too low. The truth is that some days we're an eagle and some days we're a duck. That's the truth. And it's true for everybody. It doesn't matter what you do. You can be an entrepreneur, you could be an athletic director at a university, you could be an educator, you could be a principal at an elementary school. It doesn't matter what you do. There's some days where you think you can conquer the world, and there's some days you look yourself in the mirror and you go, I'm a fraud, I can't do anything right, and you just feel terrible. And that's just part of life. So don't get too high, don't get too low. Just stay consistent in how you do things, and I think that goes a long way.
That's good. So you talked about payroll. I don't know how many people in here are trying to help meet payroll, but maybe they're a single person business.
Yeah.
So in a sense, they have to create their own payroll for themselves.
Yeah.
What are some things that you have seen for people to be successful at selling? Like, I'm selling a T-shirt tomorrow. What are some tricks or trades to selling?
I think being authentically real about who you are. Chris was teasing me because I had my note. He goes, "Are those notes?" Because he knows I don't do notes. Yeah. And I said, "No, it's notes from a meeting I had before I came in here." And that's who I am. Now that doesn't mean I don't prepare. It doesn't mean I don't think about what but I'd rather just have a conversation. And if that's who you are from a selling standpoint, you got to be authentically who you are. You know, the second, and we all know this, the second somebody starts selling something to us, what do we all do? We're done. We shut down. They lose credibility. They're like the other 10 jokers that have been in here this week, right? I mean, so really focus on what you can do to help that person. Listen to them, and then be honest with them. I mean, it's not, selling is easy, but it's hard to do, right? Because you got to really trust yourself. You got to trust that people want somebody to be authentically transparent with them. And we call it getting naked with yourself, because you got to, when we're talking to groups about, you know, sales training or whatever the case may be, but you got to strip down and get rid of all the BS and say, this is who I am, this is how I communicate, this is, you know, because if you go in there and try to be something you're not, people are going to see that a mile away and it's not going to work. You know, so just be who you are.
Yep.
I'm a loud, bald-headed, chubby guy. I'm okay with that.
So I have a friend who talks about ownership a lot, and taking ownership versus maybe renting.
Yeah.
What does that look like when you work with companies? Do you often see people not taking real ownership and just kind of being there? And what do y'all do to kind of help them take ownership of their day, to own their day, own what they're doing?
We say we've got a lot of clients that are successful in spite of themselves. And what I mean by that is you can have owners of entities that the ones that, I mean, they don't really, there's people out there that think that their business is successful purely because of them. And in our experience over the last quarter of a century, those are usually the folks that are so underperforming. They may be doing $100 million in sales, but if they get out of their own way, they'd be doing $1 billion in sales. But they're so stuck on the fact that what they think is success, well, I'm doing 100 million in revenue. I mean, look at me. No, I mean, you should be doing $1 billion, right? But I think as an individual employee, I'll give you an example. There's an employee, fairly young employee, he's about 32, 33 years old, sales manager from one of our clients. And the ownership group was ready to let him go. And when we were retained to come in and work with him, and I sat down and visited with him one day, and I said, why are you here? And he goes, well, I made 140,000, or whatever it was. It was all about the money. And I said, yeah, but why are you here? I mean, yeah, I get the money, but why are you here?
Yeah.
Why do you want to come here? And he couldn't tell me. I mean, he really didn't know. It was a job. It was just, I make money, I make good money. What I've been doing since I was like 24. And I told him point blank, so you're getting ready to get fired. Do you understand? You're going to be fired. So you need to figure out what your why is. Why are you here? I think individually, if you get up and you're transparent and you're true to who you are, and I mean everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Pete Rose, I'm a big sports guy, and Pete Rose, you got asked one time why he was always taking fielding practice before the games. And he said, well, I can hit the ball. You know, why would I go up there and take all these extra swings? This is what I need to work on, is fielding the ball. And I think too many times employees or owners want to hide from people what they're not good at, right? They try to hide it instead of embracing it and saying, you know, I kind of suck at this. I don't want to suck at this anymore. You know, help me not suck at this, right? But we're too busy wanting everybody to think we have all the answers, or, you know, we're on top of everything. And the truth is, none of us are on top of everything. I mean, come on. That person hasn't been born. Yeah. You know, the person that was born that was perfect, and we know what we did to him. So, I mean, I just don't, you know, it's just, you've got to, I keep going back to it, but you got to be honest with yourself about who you are and how you go about doing things. And be transparent about it. It's okay.
Good. Thank you for that. Last question. Thinking about community.
Yeah.
I'm big on community impact. How do you see companies in their responsibility in making a difference in their communities, and what should that look like?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. Chris, I tease Chris a lot because Chris Evans, yeah. I tease Chris a lot because I always tell him he needs to find other people that he can come talk to about supporting things in the community. I would hate it if he ever did that. Yeah. You know, because
he's always coming to you asking you for support.
Yeah.
Like you wrote a check before you.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would hate it if he ever quit asking me to do that. Now I like to give him a hard time about it, but but I think we all have a responsibility in your local communities, within your state, to help any way you can. It goes back to our mission of wanting to help 1,000 businesses in the next 10 years because we think it makes our country stronger. I mean, you know, those of you that know me know that I can be a little hard-headed at times. Just a little, right?
Yes.
And just a smidge. And you know, it's pretty cool when you live in a town where people will overlook your spots and focus on the part of you that's maybe better than the part that isn't. And I think that's what's important about being in a community, is that we all love each other in spite of the shortcomings that we have or the challenges that we're going through. One great thing about challenges is they may feel like you're the only one that's having them today. Don't worry, they'll get to everybody else eventually. I mean, we all have them, right? But I think we got to be out, we got to be involved, we got to support our community. And again, a lot of times supporting your community is just being available. You know, just to sit down and talk to somebody or to hear them, hear what they got to say. I think that's important.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much. Hey, we'll open it up for questions. Anybody have any questions for Phil?
Except for Chris.
Except for Chris. Any questions? Right, good. Any questions? Yes, sir.
What's the biggest false assumption that most businesses have? Something that think that's going to be a huge deal that ends up not being a big deal at all.
I think it's their ability to get things done. I think we look through this little small world, right? And we get it. And we think we have the greatest idea in the world or the greatest service or the greatest product. And a lot of times we don't slow down long enough to ask the question, does anybody else want it? Does anybody else care? I mean, it can be really important to us, but if nobody else wants it, if nobody else cares, doesn't mean it isn't wonderful, it just means you can't sell it. And if you can't sell it, now we got a problem, right? So I think being realistic with ourselves about what we're taking to the marketplace, I think is the real challenge.
All right, Phil, what one decision 20 years ago that you made, if you could go back, you would change?
I would change.
Yes.
Does it have to be exactly 20?
It could be 12 months ago.
Good Lord, I got a lot of them. That's a great question. 20 years ago, I wasn't very nice to people. And as a 53-year-old man, I have a lot of guilt about that. If I'm going to practice what I just said is important, to be transparent. I still have flashes of not being nice, but I'm working on it. I work on it every day. But I was so uber competitive. I believe that in business, it was all about competition and we had to kick each other's butts. And, you know, if you were competing with me, I didn't care about, I mean, it's dumb. It's the dumbest thing in the world. What I now know, thank God, that I've been taught by these millennials that everybody's so scared of, who I think are, you know, I mean, they drive me crazy. Y'all are driving me nuts. But I love you because you guys are fearless. And you guys understand it's better to collaborate. It's better to work with somebody. It's better to come together and have success than to beat each other's brains out. So I think I would have been nicer to people in business. I mean, I didn't have time for, I had sales reps. I'd blow through sales reps so fast. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, if they, you know, 6 months you weren't doing what I thought you should, you were gone. I mean, and it's stupid. It's dumb. You know, but I would be nicer. I'd be more patient. Slow down a little bit. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
What would you say is your greatest achievement
What would you say your greatest achievement
in your life?
Don't make me cry.
No crying on.
I know, but I'm getting ready to already because all I can think about are my kids. And, you know, many of you in this room know that we lost a child 11 years ago. Our oldest son, Tyler, by birth, we lost him when he was 16. And there's no question, my kids. Yeah. Now, if you ask me in business, I would say honestly, it's the endeavor we're in right now. Because it's not about the money. This business isn't about, I've been fortunate. I've made money in other companies that I still have. So I can really, we want to make money, don't get me wrong. And I'm glad we are. But it's not the main thing, if that makes sense. You know, there's a few of you in here that are close to me in age, but I'm probably the oldest guy in the room, I would say. Probably. I'd say. I don't know. I'm 53. I'll be 54. So
Yeah, you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest. but I would tell you, as a 53, 54-year-old.
You're the oldest by a lot.
Yeah, I know. Thanks. I would tell you that your legacy matters more to you when you get older. You start thinking about what's really important, and it's not your tax return and what's on it. It's not how much money you have in the bank. It is, how do people see you? How do you want to be thought of? I'll give you, since I feel like I'm on Dr. Phil now, it's therapy, but, I held a grudge with a guy in this town for 2 years that I stopped 2 days ago. And the reason I stopped it is this guy. So when I say I'm hard-headed, I'm still working on it, that's what I'm talking about. Right? So, and the guy that held the grudge was a good guy. Truth is, I really like him.
Well, it depends on the day.
Yeah. That's in a good place, isn't it? No, but I think just, just slowing down long enough to think about what's really important. We have a gentleman in this town right now that's laying in the trauma center in Oklahoma City, and man, it's very important to a lot of people in this room that has known him a long time. Is in a vehicle accident. And, if you want to know what's important, wake up and get that text or get that phone call, and all this other stuff doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I mean, Preston may or may not remember this, but I remember many years ago when Preston was a young man, we were at the football field, and something happened with your mama when we were at the game. And the panic I saw in Preston, I told Hetty when Preston walked away, what did I tell you about Preston?
Good guy.
I said, I love that kid, and always have. But I remember that because nothing else mattered at that moment to any of us. You remember the night? And it was just, those kind of things, that's what matters. Truly that's what matters. We just get too caught up in all the stuff, what we think matters. What matters is the people that you love and being kind to each other and helping each other. That's what matters. My grandpa used to always say he's never seen an armored car at a funeral. Is it supposed to be doing that? Yeah. I was getting ready to run out of here. I'm really nervous. But it's, I think just focusing on what matters. Jeff Ball, who's a principal.
Jeff Ball, raise your hand.
Yeah.
People know.
Jeff is a principal, longtime educator in this town, coach. And I love Jeff remembers this, but Jeff asked me one time what I thought about him being a principal someday. You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember what I told you?
Go for it.
I said, go for it, man. I could be a great principal. And you talk to anybody that's in the administration, he's one of the best ones we have. But I think it's because Jeff cares about kids. And so when you get up and your why is there, I know that's so in vogue to say what's your why, but it's true.
No, it's true.
His why, he knows what his why is all about. So it makes it simpler.
One more question over here. Question over here.
No, I got one.
Yes,
Oh, you okay?
So you talked a lot about collaboration, and it
Yeah.
sounds like you do that a lot as
Yeah.
a business. What do you find is the most effective way to kind of break through the, people thinking you're trying to compete against them, or you're trying to get something from them instead of working together?
So what's the best way to collaborate is what you're asking?
Yeah.
You got to be persistent, and you got to give it some time. I can tell you what my heart is, but until I show you what my heart is, it doesn't matter what I tell you, right? So you got to be somewhat patient with it. You got to let it develop. You got to let it come. It's and then you also got to be really, in my opinion, again, this T word, transparent. You got to be really transparent. If you're not willing to say, I'm self-aware. I know my spots. I know I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this, but man, I'm great at this, this, and this. I see you're great at the things that I'm not so good at. Let's figure this out. And then you got to be patient and let them find out that that's really what your intention is. I don't know that anybody's ever been born that can get somebody to do that immediately where it lasts, right? But I'd say just be patient and transparent.
Question, how do you balance business and family? So like, do you have like a certain regimen? Do you have family goals, like I'm spending this much time at
Yeah.
work? Or how do you, because that has to be a challenge, right?
It is.
So how do you?
Well, I think, and I like that question, and again, I always go back to Chris or Hetty or Jeff or any of them in here that's known me for a long time. I was that dad that didn't miss anything. I was at every practice. I always want to make sure everybody understands this. I wasn't a helicopter dad, because I wasn't. Jeff can attest to that. but I loved it so much. I just wanted to be around the kids. So I've always been a guy that said the reason why I've always owned my own companies is I would suck as an employee because I'm not good at asking another grown man if I can leave. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at going up to another adult young lady and say, hey, can I take 2 weeks off in July? I'm not good at that. So if you know you're going to struggle with those things, again, be self-aware, right? But to answer your question, I believe if you're, I don't think you can separate business and family. I don't. And what I mean by that is this. If you aren't dialed in personally and in your family life, business is never going to be at its full potential. If you're not dialed in professionally, family's going to struggle. And the reason I say that is we can, and I know I said it's not about the money, but believe me, I can say that now because I got other stuff. But at some point it is about the money, right? Isn't it? I mean, when you're starting out, when you're getting started, when you're trying to build something, it's a little bit about the money, right? I mean, you got to pay the bills. You want to be able to provide for your family. You want to be able to do those things. But I've always just made a priority that I never, ever sacrificed anything with my wife or any of my children because of business. And and Chris will attest to this. People that are around me, I could be in the middle of a meeting, and if I look down at my phone and it's one of my kids, my adult kids, or it's my wife calling me, I say, excuse me, and I step out of the room and I take the call. And if they're not okay with that, I'm okay with us not working together. I mean, and that's a non-negotiable. Does that make sense? So I think it's all about priorities, I mean, there's nothing more important to me than my wife. I believe that if you take care of your wife, that's how you are best as being a father, because they get to see how you treat their mother. And so if you make her a priority above everything else, then your kids feel secure and safe and happy and loved, right? And I think most people in the business world, they respect somebody that truly puts their family first. Most people do. I mean, you got to be smart about it, obviously. You can't be in the middle of closing a deal and the phone rings and it's your kid and say, oh, hold on, I'll be right back. Right? I mean, you got to have some common sense involved, but you got to make your family the number one priority. That's what I think.
I'm curious, what advice would you give someone later in their career that you would not give to someone early in their career?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
That's a good question.
Okay.
Hold on, so let's do this.
Yeah.
So I would like, some of y'all are not as far along, but maybe Greg, maybe Sam, I would like some other responses on this as well. Phil.
Absolutely. We got some pretty people coming in here. Look at all those beautiful people. There's the future of Guthrie football. That's putting pressure on you, son.
All right, so the question is, what advice would you give somebody later in their career versus early?
That you would not.
That you would not.
Right.
That you would not give early in their career.
This is going to seem backwards. I'm going to just file this disclaimer.
Greg, you're going to answer next.
I think somebody that's later in their career versus something that I would not give to somebody that's early in their career is to follow your heart and what your passion is right now. What do you want to do? Because a lot of times people later in their career, they just sucked it up and ground it out for so long. They've done something a lot of times they just flat don't like. And if you're letting, man, listen, we get older, we're running out of time. That's the reality of it. And I told somebody today, I got 25, maybe 30 years left. And I ain't saying good years. That's just what I'm talking about. Right? I mean, that's the truth. I'm gonna be mid-70s, 80 years old. So I may not be in the fourth quarter, but I'm getting real close. And so I encourage people that are farther along in their career to put their toe in the ground and really figure out, what do I want to spend my last 10, 15, whatever years, 20 years professionally, what do I want to do? Because think about it, usually at that point, our kids are grown, right? My wife and I are empty nesters. There's benefits to that.
Yeah.
Being empty nester. Get to date my wife again. That's fun. But it's easier when it's just two of you, right? Financially, it's easier when it's just two of you. So you actually, I think, have more freedom to go try these other things. So that, for me, that's what now, a youngster, you gotta build some consistency professionally. You can't just, don't be hopping around every 9 months, man. Just don't do that. I'm not saying don't go try different things, but at some point you got to settle in, because you're never going to become good at anything if you just keep hopping around. So that's my perspective.
Greg?
Man, I echo that. I was going to say older, take risks,
Yep.
Younger, develop loyalty.
Yeah.
Habit.
Yeah.
Figure out how to be loyal.
And your network when you're younger too, because that network's going to pay dividends when you're older. I mean, that network's where you're going to go back and say, hey, I know you know me as Phil the accountant guy, but I want to be Phil the dog groomer guy, or whatever, you know what I mean? So I need this network to help me get there. I mean, and you're never going to build a good network hopping. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
I love that. I think that's a great place to kind of just end as far as just the networking. And my heart would be that, I host a podcast and I get to sit down and help this one-on-one. But at the end of the day, it's about this. It's about connecting and how can we help one another. It's not always about giving someone money, but it may be a resource that you have, a connection, a person that you know that you can connect somebody with. And so over the next 30 minutes or so, I don't know how much longer you have, we're here till 8. I would love to see you all find someone in the room and just ask them their story and see how you can provide a resource to help them get further better in their story. Because Go Win is about defining your win and discovering what are those right things to help you get to that win. And all of us in this room are very brilliant, intelligent, and very resourceful people, and I love to see y'all help somebody. So for the next 45 minutes, if you want to stay around, connect with somebody, and Phil is here as
Can I say
well.
one thing?
Yeah.
I just want to extend this to everybody's in the room. Our bold advisory groups, you can compare them to other groups. We're very low cost by design, but anybody that's here that thinks they want to get involved, you can come be a part of one of our groups for 3 months at no charge, and just come check it out. Hetty knows this because I've talked to Hetty a lot about our bold advisory groups, but it's too many times peer advisory, they charge so much, the people that need it can't afford it. I belong to a peer advisory group for 14 years. The group I belong to, I pay $1,200 a month to be a part of. I mean, that's a mortgage, right? Not a lot of people that are in year 0 to year 5 can afford to go do that in business, right? So we wanted to create a vehicle that people could come and really get the help. So anybody here that wants to be a part of it, let me know, and you're welcome to come join a group. We can even create a group out of this people right here. No charge, we'll run for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, somebody wants to continue on, we can. If you don't, that's great too. But I think it's important that people consistently are sharing and serving each other to get the full benefit. So I just wanted to extend that for anybody that's here. I'll do that for y'all.
That's great. Let's give it up for Phil.
Yeah.
Hey, connect with somebody. I see a lot of great people in here. I would love to connect and see you all connected. So let's make that happen. I appreciate you.